Pearls from the Holy Quran is brought to you by University Islamic Financial. Why pay more for home financing? We specialize in purchase transactions and low down payment options.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تأكلوا الربا أضعافا مضاعفة واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون
بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى صحبه ومن والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Welcome to another episode of our series. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about stories of prophets or battlefields or social issues, sometimes at fair amount of details. However, in some of those instances, we find that while Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the main context, an ayah or two get dropped in the middle of that main context. And when you look at it, you find that what's the relationship? What is this ayah doing there? And the apparent meaning, they may look like not related, but when we understand the essence of each, the main context and the context of these two ayahs, we find that not only they are related, but this verse or two provides the solution and the clue to the problem addressed in the main context, and which is a very unique linguistic way which only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could do it. We'll go into two examples today that will make the picture clearer. In Surah Al-Baqarah chapter 2 in verse 238, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks around that verse in length about a family issue, which is divorce. And he talks about types of divorce, what if this happens, if that happens, she did, he did, all those cases. Child support, alimony, breastfeeding, all those issues. And in the middle of those, Allah drops the verse where Allah says, حافظوا على الصلوات والصلاة الوسطى وقوموا لله قانتين. That's verse 238. While he's talking about divorce and issues, and now he talks about salah. What is the relationship? It's, as we said, it's not only related, but it provides a clue. What Sheikh Sha'rawi rahimahullah was saying, if we imagine the scene of both families getting involved, elderly people trying to help out, and talking to the wife on the side and the husband on the other side, and come to common grounds, and all those tactics to see how they could come up with feasible solution. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says the solution is in this verse. He says not only the solution, but let's go to the root cause. He says the salah is the connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are many ways to connect with Allah, and the best example is salah. And Allah says in this verse, hold to your prayer, make sure you don't lose them. You do them, you perform them, to their potential, to use them as connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not just a mechanical exercise. He says, if you lose that connection, all those problems happen. So trace this problem you're having as a divorce. You'll find that one of the two parties, or both, have gone away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They gave up on the connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all those problems happen. They say, go back to Allah, you will never see those problems. So that's the link between this family issue and salah. Another angle to look at it, which is when both families try, both parties, everybody is involved, try their best to solve the problem, and then they give up. What Sheikh Sha'rawi was saying, why don't they say, oh Allah, we give up on our means, we're going to pray 2 rak'ah to Allah and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to find the solution for us. And he says, if you do it in sincerity, I challenge you that Allah will provide a solution. If He does not provide solution, then there's an issue with sincerity, not an issue with Allah's keeping His promise. So, as you see in this example, Allah He provides things that may seem out of context, prayer, divorce, but actually prayer finds the solution to that problem. And if we do not find that the solution is working, then we're not applying it properly and correctly. That was one example. We could take another example in Surah Al-e-Imran chapter 3, and that's in verse 130, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the battle of Uhud. To give a context, that's the second battle the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has fought against the infidels. The highlight of that battle is that the Prophet ﷺ strategically put some of his companions on the hill and say, never leave, regardless what you see. We're winning, we're losing, till you get the signal from me. Regardless what happens, you don't leave. Well, the battle went in the favor of the believers, of the Muslims, and the companions on top of the hill, they said, oh, we're winning, the game over. You know, the infidels are running away, and those spoils of war, camels and all those things, let's go and get them. So the theme there, getting something more than your share, something that you should not get. It's not allowed for you to get it. You try to get it, and what happens is that was a defeat. It was a great lesson to the companions and to the entire society that when you disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, problems happen. Now, in the middle of all this, and by the way, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in Surah Al-e-Imran in 66 verses. Huge passage, talking about all details. And in the middle of that, He throws the verse of usury, taking riba. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O who you believe, لا تأكلوا الربا أضعافا مضاعفة واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. Do not take usury, do not charge interest, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so you may attain success. Again, interest and battlefield, what's the relationship? As you said at the beginning, the theme, the highlight of that battle, they wanted to take more than their share without permission. They disobeyed order, just broke the law just to get something more. And that caused a huge disturbance in the society. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to throw the ayah of interest and say, the person who's charging interest is trying to take more than his share. And that causes problems and collapse of the society. And we see nowadays how problems, debt problems, all that, because someone is trying to charge, rip off people and try to take more and more and more. And that causes disturbance in the society. So that's the connection. So now when we look at those two examples and see, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use this way, other than being linguistically nice? Well, in human nature, when you tell someone about a bad habit he or she does, and you tell him, why don't you leave that? Let's say someone's smoking, and you tell him it's bad, and he's like, oh, it's okay. Then at one point he sees that his dad or something is diagnosed with lung cancer, and they say it's because of smoking, and he dies. And you go and tell this person, do you see what smoking does? Now he's really seeing that point. It's still hot, and that gives him a shock. He's more willing to quit that bad habit. So again, if you have a little child and you tell him this oven is hot, do not touch it, and he just keeps playing with it. And he sees, and one day his older brother gets totally burned with the oven. Then you tell him, you see what I told you? See what happens to someone who touches the oven? He will get that lesson right away. He saw a big calamity in front of him. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did. You're losing in the battlefield of Uhud because you disobeyed. You want it to be greedy and get more? Well, guess what? Interest does the same. And of course, the companions would get that message because it's fresh. The same with divorce. You see those problems that are happening? All sorts of problems, similar problems would happen if you leave salah. So get back to this, it will solve your problem and others. So this psychological tactic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has used in Quran, and we use with our children, and sometimes we think that it only works with kids, but it works for adults and for everyone. So hopefully we use that, and more importantly, we learn from the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala earlier on, without the need of seeing a huge calamity in front of us till we pick up the lesson. So that would be our, action item for this. And thank you for attending, and Jazakumullah khairan, and God bless.